Welcome to Families in Faith, training and encouragement for parents as they work to teach their children about God and pass the faith on to the next generation. Well, right after the Shema passage in Deuteronomy, Moses gives a warning. This warning seems very appropriate for us today. He said in Deuteronomy 6:10-12, "When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you a land with large, flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. Then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery." Do you sense a connection to the Israelites here? We all live in flourishing cities and homes we did not build. We have an endless supply of water from wells we did not dig. We don't worry about our food or really have to work to produce it. We live in the land of plenty. We eat and are satisfied. So how are we careful that we don't forget the Lord? That we don't forget what He has done for us and what He continues to provide for us? In the wilderness, the Israelites had to completely trust in God. There was no food, God provided it. There was no water, God provided it. There was no shelter, and they needed protection. God provided it. The warning, therefore, was timely. Now that you are going to have all your needs seemingly taken care of, now that you are about to live in a land of plenty and be full, don't forget what God has done and He continues to do. I think we should heed this warning in our own lives and families. We should be careful not to forget who God is and what He does for us. Even though we have so much, we still need to rely on Him and to teach our children to rely on Him. So how do you do that? How do you rely on God when life is good? It's a bit easier to rely on God when we are in the wilderness or stuck in slavery, but when we are in the promised land and we are satisfied, it can be harder. We might forget God. That's the warning. But there are ways we can work in our families to daily rely on God and to remember what He has done and continues to do for us so that we don't forget Him and fall away from the faith. Well, we start with the hard times in life. When we are going through our own wilderness or stuck in slavery, we rely on God and seek Him and His Word for answers, guidance, comfort, and clarity. Include your children in this, in God's story. In Deuteronomy, after the warning from Moses, He later says, "In the future, when your son asks you, 'What's the meaning of the stipulations, decrees, and laws the Lord of our God has commanded you?' tell him, 'We were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Before our eyes the Lord set miraculous signs and wonders, great and terrible, upon Egypt and Pharaoh and his whole household. But He brought us out from there to bring us in and give us the land that He promised an oath to our forefathers.'" That's what we should do with our children. Tell them the story of God, especially how it relates to our lives. When we were in the wilderness or slavery of life, how did God bring us out and deliver us to the promised land? We turn now to the good times, when we are satisfied. How do you remember to rely on God in the good times? How do we teach our children to rely on God in the good times? Well, it starts with learning to recognize God, to be dependent on Him for the little things, the details of life. Jesus said in John 13:7, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." The best way to realize where God is working in our lives is to look back and see how things turned out. The best way to do that is to keep track of the little things, the things we are thankful for every day, in a journal. Do you thank God every day for things? Is your list stagnant, meaning you thank God for the same things every day, but your list doesn't grow or fluctuate much? If you had to thank God for something different every day, how many days could you go before you repeated yourself? Keep a journal and find out. Better yet, do it with your kids. Every day you must find something you are thankful for. As the days go by, challenge your kids. What is something you don't like that you are thankful for God for? What chores are you thankful for? What homework are you thankful for? What disappointment are you thankful for? When these end up in our journal, we can look back and, as Jesus said, understand what He is doing. Spend some time this week thinking about how you rely on God. Then talk with your kids about relying on God and being thankful for His work in our lives. See this email for ideas, web connections, and books to further this idea. May God bless you and your family as you strive to rely on Him in all circumstances.